Attention! The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning for the entirety of the National Hockey League. Please stay tuned for further information from the Storm Cellar.
Welcome back to the Storm Cellar. I don't know if to call this the Round 2 victory episode or the Eastern Conference Finals preview episode, but my heart rate is like 66 beats because the Hurricanes don't play hockey today, or technically yesterday or tomorrow, because they did what we hoped they could do. I thought they were going to win. You were on the fence, if I'm being honest. You thought it might be Devils in 7, but I know that's not where your heart was. But missing the firepower that we were missing, and not realizing that Jordan Martinook was going to go all, I believe the term was Wayne Gretzky,
well,
on the Devils.
Yeah.
Jordan Martinook Gretzky? I'm feeling good. Yeah. Jordan Gretzky Martin. Can we call him Gretz for short, maybe? That was funny because he's like, oh, Jordan Martinook's having a Gretzky, like, oh, and the puck is in. Yeah. And you could almost hear the disappointment, like, oh, Carolina scored again. This one's over.
Yeah.
How you feeling though, Ray?
I'm doing great. And again, this one was a matter of just too much respect for the opposition, and maybe slightly misplaced, but falling back on our own history is why I kind of lean to them.
Oh, sure.
As it returns to in terms of Schmid himself, and we'll get to that when we talk to the Canes about the Canes Devils.
Yeah, we'll deep dive that. But
we'll deep dive that. That's exactly it. But we have a very special guest in the Storm Cellar with us. He just walked in, pulled up a chair, and we're ready to chat with him. He does some amazing work. He's not out in front of the camera. He's a brilliant mind. You have seen his work. If you're following the Carolina Hurricanes on social media, you've seen sensational work by this man. Jack Ridenour. Next level. Absolutely. Jack Ridenour.
Welcome.
Oh my God. I'm so glad we got you, man. This is so great. This is so great.
Happy to be here. It's I think that it'll be fun to kind of pull back the curtain, let some people know kind of behind the scenes stuff, but it's been a fun ride for sure. I'm happy to be here with you guys.
Love it. Now, Jack, with the Storm Cellar, we always like to talk and find out about our guests who come in. We want to know about Caniacs and Jerks and how they got to this point. We want to hear your story. So as it relates to the Hurricanes, how did you become a Caniac and employed by the Canes further, which, you've got some insight probably that Brad and I and many of our listeners are going to be very interested in hearing. So tell us all about it. How did you become a Caniac?
Yeah, I mean, it helps that they pay my bills now, so that definitely, that's a good way to get into it. But no, I was born and raised in North Carolina, and I had never really grew up watching hockey. And I grew up in Western North Carolina, about an hour west of Asheville. If you know where Western Carolina University is, Colowee, that's where I'm from. So,
oh yeah, you from way up in the hills.
Yeah, we don't.
A lot of people
forget.
A lot of people forget Asheville's not the end of the state. There's a lot more state.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's pretty close to Tennessee. So it was a big baseball town. Like I said, not a lot of hockey. I can't ice skate at all. Like if I went out there right now, I'd probably hurt myself. So can't skate. But did grow up playing all kinds of sports, and loved it. Like I love playing sports, watching sports, as a kid. It's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's like, oh, I want to be a baseball player. I want to play in the major league. So that, grew to love sports at a young age, and always wanted to go and play at the next level. Maybe it was like a collegiate level, but if you hit 230 in high school, you're not going to get a lot of college offers, surprisingly enough. So that didn't end up coming to fruition. But kind of when I was in high school, I took one. It wasn't even like a design class. It was Adobe Suites sort of class. So we would learn Adobe Premiere. I think there was an audio program, and Photoshop was in there as well. And we kind of blocked it out this semester. We'd go through different programs, and the one that I really enjoyed was Photoshop. And It's funny looking back now because that's the only formal education I've had in graphic design was that one kind of like quarter semester in high school.
Wow.
Get
But
the heck out of here.
yeah, I just
Wow.
I really liked it. And like, it really mixed my two interests of sports. And then I could make cool looking stuff using Photoshop that was sports related. And at the time, it wasn't really like as big as it is now. Like it was pretty informational stuff and not as much as like fun or creative like things. It was like, here's the time the puck dropped, right? Here is the date and the TV network. So it wasn't near as fun. But yeah, moving out of high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do in terms of like college or anything like that. So I went to community college for 2 years. Ended up getting my associates and knew my sister had gone to NC State. I liked Raleigh a lot. I wanted to go to NC State. So once I finished up my associates, I ended up going to NC State, majoring in business, with a concentration in IT. Yep, go Pack.
Go back.
So
Sorry, Rick.
that
all
again,
good.
no design, right? No like graphic design or anything like that. And after I graduated with my business degree, no idea what I wanted to do. Like the only reason I got this degree was because it was so broad and general that I feel like I could kind of plug and play in anywhere. So this in I graduated in 2020. So this was kind of when the Canes were, turning that corner and becoming, cool again or like fun to watch. And I had never been to a hockey game, and I went to a few in college, and they were a lot of fun. So that was, right after that 18-19 where we finally got back to the playoffs for the first time forever. So the Canes were kind of up and coming, and the black sweaters. I told my bosses, like, the black sweaters, when we like unveiled those, like that was a cool thing to have. Like, you're a college kid in Raleigh, like you see those black sweaters, you're like, oh, I want that. Like that's kind of the first thing that I saw that I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, what is this all about? So again, went to some college, or went to some games when I was in college and really liked the sport. And it was cool to see a professional team in a town that I was living in, because I never had anything like that. I hadn't even had a D1 program, or I guess Western Carolina is a D1 program, but nothing like, crazy big, or with a lot of fans and things like that. So having a professional team in my backyard was really cool and something that I was really interested in. So after I graduated from college, I saw that NC State was looking for creative media interns for the football team. And I was like, that sounds pretty cool. I might as well like shoot an email. I don't have anything else I'm doing. Like, this is peak COVID, like no one's hiring, like why not? So I sent an email to the creative director of NC State football, who is now the team photographer for the Carolina Panthers, Chanel Smith Walker. She's fantastic, one of the best in the world, in my opinion. But with some stuff I had made in that one high school class. So like that was my quote unquote portfolio, was stuff I made when I was like, I don't know, 15 years old. And luckily she was like, yeah, I think we can work with this. So why don't you hop on board? And that was, that was a lot of fun. So I started doing recruiting material, which you're basically trying to make these like, 17, 18-year-old kids feel like $1 million. You're putting their name on jerseys, or, hyping them up and making them look cool and feel very important. So I did that and saw that, like, hey, this could be a career path for me, right? Like, this is sports. This is something I'm interested in, something I like doing. So I kind of, once my internship was up there, and I kind of dedicated a lot of time to like honing in my craft or perfecting it, and doing a lot of research and watching tutorials, things like that. Applied to a bunch of different collegiate programs throughout, the whole United States, really. And ended up landing a gig at the University of Virginia for their athletic department. So I did design for all 27 of our sports. So that was a lot of experience, all the way from like football to rowing and field hockey, right? Anything in between, basketball, like everything you can think of, they have it there at Virginia. So garnered a lot of experience in a very short amount of time. I was there for about 1.5 years. And I knew long term that I wanted to move back to Raleigh. I really liked it, and North Carolina just in general, because I really liked the location and things like that. So, I really wanted to get back here in the capacity that, like, I was either working in the NC State athletic department or potentially with the Carolina Hurricanes, but I thought the Hurricanes was kind of, that's a long shot, right? That's professional. That's the big leagues. So I don't know. I got an opportunity to interview with some of the people here after I applied, and luckily ended up getting it and starting here in about, I don't know how many months ago. Was that 5-6 months ago? About second week of January, which was about a month before Stadium Series, which was a big haul, right? That's what we were prepping for, and I'm glad I got in at that time, because that was a lot of fun, and being a kid from North Carolina and seeing, like, I really do call it, like, the closest thing we're gonna get to a Super Bowl here in North Carolina. Like, it was a big deal, and it was super cool, and so I got to kind of help create the look and feel for that. And during that game, I was up in the press box in Carter Finley, updating score templates and win graphics. I don't know if you guys saw, like, the fireworks behind the players that said, like, Canes win. That was not real. I made that. So that was, like, kind of a one of the pieces that I thought, like, performed very well, because, like, even to this day, I'll see it as people's profile pictures, and I'm like, I wonder if they know that that's not real. But that was a lot of fun to kind of jump into immediately and get things rolling there with Stadium Series and things like that. So fast forward to where we are now, right in the middle of the playoffs, Final Four now. Just having the time of my life. Have a lot of trust from a lot of different people kind of in our department. It's not just me. Like, I wish I could take full credit for everything. Definitely cannot do that. Like, we have 2 other full-time designers on staff with Ashley and Allie. They're great. They're killer. As well as creative director Cato, trusting us, keeping us all lined in. Our social team with Matt and Mac, they're both, like I said, a lot of trust from them, as well as from, like, our higher ups in marketing with Mike and Dan. Like, those guys, they get it, and they kind of let us do our thing, and it's been great, man. Like, so much fun.
And thanks, to everybody, but particularly Mike and Dan. I'm sure you had to get clearances to come on and talk to us, because right, like, you're in the middle of the busy season. Knock on wood. Hopefully that continues for another month. So thanks to them for just letting you come on and talk to us. Thanks to the team for knocking the Devils out in Game 5, which gave you the weekend free, so that you could be here. Because I mean, I've said it a million times. So the Canes social media team is second to none. I am somebody, and on this show, we've always tried to be realists. We're Hurricanes fans, but if we see something we don't like, we're going to call it out. And I've done that before. I'm sure sometimes the social media guys probably see Storm Cellar and they're like, oh gosh, like, this could be good, or this could be them ranting about something. But they have an impossibly hard job in some ways, and I think they do a phenomenal job with it. Sometimes, because social media is kind of the public face of the team, they probably get heat for things that should be run up the flagpole, but they're the ones who write, that we know that we can get a hold of. So it's obviously nothing personal. We think they do a phenomenal job, thanks to them. But especially with the Devil series, for me, our graphics were in our social media presence was already an A, and then first graphic, the red one, right, with the kind of eye of the hurricane, kind of a look to it. That came out. It just says no deal. And I saw people like, what does that mean? And it's like no deal, like deal with the devil, like, and then everybody's like, oh, and it felt like another level, like we had an A presence, and now we're getting up into like A+ teacher's pet category, because that came out and was just phenomenal.
Cerebral. You know what I mean? Like, there was something there, like, and it's funny when you said no deal with the devil. On the other end of that, it also brings in the aspect of never compromise either.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it just kind of wraps it up and puts a nice little bow on it, and you're just like, this is glorious. This is genius. And it's speaking on so many different levels that you just kind of go, wow, it's sensational. And Jackie, so if you don't mind, or if you can, I wanted to kind of ask a question about those very ideas and things like that. When you're pulling things together with your ideas and stuff, do you get together with your colleagues and spitball a bunch of ideas and stuff like that. Just throw things up and take a look at where you might be able to go. And it comes from you, or does it come from, say, marketing down? Marketing down says, we want you to give us something like this. And then you take the process and go. Like, where are all these great ideas coming from? I looked at the Islanders one that you did. Welcome back. The two fishermen in the boat and stuff, and it was like, that was brilliant too. Where does all of this come from? Is it inside that brain of yours, or how does it work? Bring us through it.
So it definitely depends on kind of what graphics, but specifically talking about the playoffs, we have so myself and Allie, another one of our designers, we switch out the game. We call them hype pieces. So it's not informational. It's not, this is the time, this is the day, this is the network. It's to get the fans talking. It's to get you ready for the game and kind of set the tone. So that we don't have a very, boxy brief. It's make something cool, be artistic, be creative. And I think even on the brief, it says like, don't put any sort of like Stanley Cup branding or like anything like that. Like, you do you're not constrained to anything. So a lot of these ideas are kind of, I'll make something, I'll have an idea, I'll conceptualize something and send it out for some notes or changes that people would want to see. So luckily you guys are seeing the final product and not my first draft. I'll pull up an example. So like the game 5 where the devil is kind of drowning in the water right in front of PNC.
I love that one.
My first draft of that, I had the horns upright and it wasn't as stormy, right? There wasn't like as much rain and it was kind of a calmer setting. So I sent that out and they said, I like the idea. I think we could really play with this. But let's kind of muck it up a little bit. Let's make it look like he actually might be drowning instead of like raising up out of the water. And because that's that's gonna help them a little bit more. That's gonna make them look a little bit cooler. So kind of tilt the horns like so it's almost photorealistic, because if your hand was up and you're reaching for help, your head would be tilted. So there's a lot of like these minute details that come from everyone all around. And I just kind of throw the idea out, say, hey, I think this could look cool and be cool. And then they are like, okay, yes, you're on the right track. Let's tweak these little minute things. And that's what like really will put it over the top. Like same thing with like the New Jersey state outline, where it's kind of that, water meets lava and it's cracking and it's kind of hardening up. My initial concept for that was just a full lava state. And the feedback that I got was, hey, that kind of makes them look really cool. And that could almost be a New Jersey hype piece. Like that could look like almost they would post it. So how do we get from like A to C where it looks like a Hurricanes piece and not a Devils piece? So, the way that we kind of met in the middle there was to almost look like the water is hardening this lava, or the scorched earth, HE double hockey sticks type of island. That's the vibe that we were going for. So yeah, the ideas and some of them are kind of like up here. It's just I get help from various different places on our team from how to get it from good to what I hope is great in the fans' eyes.
So I have to bring up a great one. So I'm looking at one and the post just says hell has frozen over. Right. This is what I'm calling like the ice block graphic. You have the Prudential Center in the background, kind of then you have this block of ice. It's kind of, kind of broken up a little bit. And a lot of people may have missed the detail. In that block of ice is a tooth. And I'm assuming that tooth used to be in the mouth of Mr. Hughes and is no longer. But I got to know, whose idea is the tooth? Like, was that a you thing, or did somebody go, oh, hey, let's put a tooth in there because that would be wicked funny? Or the fact that the Hurricanes are willing to, they're willing to not be conservative, right? They're not willing to be like old, stodgy, don't offend anybody business. Not that this is offensive, but just, they're willing to push buttons a little bit, right? they're willing to, when they got blocked by the Preds, be like, hey, like, why are we blocked by the Preds 3 years ago? And, but the tooth, that is a very impressive detail and shows how much attention to the organization pays, to these graphics, because they know that things like that, once they're picked up on, are going to go viral. I mean, that's why you guys as a team are fantastic. But I got to know, can we know whose idea was the tooth?
Oh yeah, no, it definitely. So I had the original concept of, and this is a real statue outside of the Prudential Center, that little rock. I didn't know that was a thing until I started like Googling.
I knew it
that's
5 seconds
that's
ago.
an actual. Oh yeah, it's an actual rock, and I threw the plaque in kind of on the side to say, hey, this is a real thing. But the tooth, and I had that original concept just without the tooth, and then our team photographer, we just had kind of like a team meeting on, I guess it was Thursday afternoon, 4 hours before the game. He's like, dude, you got to put the tooth in. And I looked at him, I said, yeah, I got to put the tooth in. You're 100% right. Like, that is genius. So
that's a great idea.
I think it took like 2 seconds to actually just kind of plop it in there and kind of make it, fit the lighting and everything like that. But it's like, that is genius. And that takes it from, to the next level. Like, I thought it was a cool piece, but man, that is just like, and you don't notice it, right? Like, it's one of those things, like, as an artist or designer, you're like, I want people to stop and stare and look at this and break it down. And then once they see that, they're like, oh man, those canes, like, I hate them or I love them.
Yeah. And a lot of people missed it because I bring it up and people are like, what? And I'm like, it can't be any more obvious to me once you see it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that your team treats art as art, right? This isn't just nobody's looking on your team is looking at this like this is just a hockey promo, right? They're like, this is legit. I know somebody on Twitter said, like, we should be able to buy these. And I immediately was like, if you said we're going to make these like mini posters, like the 4 of them or 5 of them for like $20, like, I would buy them. I would put those on my wall in my Canes room. Absolutely. Like, fantastic job.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll come to fruition. I know there's been talks behind the scenes. I don't want to promise anything, but hopefully, I think that'd be super cool. I would love to buy them personally, but we'll see. Hopefully that's something that we could do in the future. But that'd be super cool. Like, that for me is like, that's pat on the back, right? Like, people want to buy your art and put it on their wall. Like, that's pretty cool.
So Jack, you talk about the hype pieces. Are the hype pieces your favorite part of this, because it does just let your creativity just explode, right? It just goes out there, and how many different ideas, and how hard is it to do those creative ones when you're managing all the other work that you have to do? Because we see it everywhere, all of these great graphic designs involving the team name, the scores, all the rest of it. Like, that's a lot of work. And when it feels like these creative ones are so much fun, you'd want to spend more time with it. Tell me about it. Like, how do you manage it all? Like, how does that work? What's your
maybe like, what's a normal work day? Maybe that you could tie in, like you get up, you come in on a non-game day or a game day. What's it like for you?
The playoffs have definitely been different. Just with kind of, we wanted to take things in our own hands and like you said, take it up that next level. So things for playoffs have been a little bit different. Our team will divvy up projects and kind of do a little bit of a rotation. So like, I have the hype pieces every other game, and Allie has them, when I don't have them. So for an example, if I had game 1, she would have 2, me 3, or 4, so and so on. But then I would then take another one of our graphics, in place of that, and get that rotation. So it's not like getting stale or just wrecking my brain trying to like come up with these uber creative pieces. But to your question about if these are my favorite, hands down, like these are so much fun. And my favorite thing is like when teams talk trash or like are chirpy to each other, like that's fun to me. So any way I can do that and like tell a story, which is really what I'm trying to do in these hype pieces, is like you don't see any hockey pucks, right? There's no sticks. There's no like,
Yeah.
I think the only hype piece I've done with a hockey player was like Aho looking up at the cup in round 1, game 1. So that it's like, okay, well, how do you tell a story without a hockey puck, right? We're playing this game, we're playing hockey. How does this relate at all? So playing with the mascots, the atmosphere, the different like vibes of kind of how the series is going, because if we go to 2-2, we're not putting out that double drowning before game 5. Like it just doesn't make sense, right? Like it's a tie series. We're not up 3-1 where we have them on the ropes. So we would have had a pivot there. So it's there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes, that people don't really see or like aren't in the meetings for, things like that. But yeah, I love doing the creative pieces, and the storytelling is where I'm just like really trying to make people feel something.
Ray mentioned that, the game 5 Islanders piece, right? The 2 fishermen in the boat.
Mm-hmm.
That tells a whole story. You can look at that graphic and go, yeah, those guys are in trouble. It reads ominous, even though contextually it's clouds wrapped around a boat and a couple of guys fishing. And like the water's not overly, aggressive or anything. It's just, but it has almost a horror movie cinematic feel to it, which is just phenomenal. So
like they're in the eye of the storm where it's relatively calm, but they're in desperate trouble, right? Like they're just by themselves out there, and it's brilliant. Cerebral is the best word that I could call it. I just love everything about it. Hits so many points.
And I was gonna say, and on top of the cerebral piece, you mentioned, Jack, about kind of the little bit of trash talk between teams. I'm sure as fans, we probably go way too far sometimes collectively. The teams, at least, I think, everybody's professional. Like there's some, professional rivalries. I know that I think you were looking forward to the Panthers because the Panthers have had some amazing graphics. I kind of saw the Panthers, posted something, and I saw Jack kind of like, oh, like, so like we need to turn this up another notch. And as a fan, that gets me excited because I'm like, okay, what's next, right? And not just for the Canes. Like now I'm also looking at, I followed the Florida Panthers guys. I shouldn't say guys, the Florida Panthers, social media, designers, because I'm like, okay, now what are they going to do? Because they've had some phenomenal stuff as well. And that's part of what our podcast is about. That's one of the things I see when I look on social media and I see like the Andrew Raycrofts of the world, like, oh, a Florida Carolina final is like the worst thing and it's not going to grow the salary cap, blah, 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 blah. Look, old white guys. Everybody in Canada watches hockey. So if it's Edmonton Leafs, you're not going to get new fans on board to watch the finals. It's just not going to happen. Everybody up there who is interested in hockey already watches hockey. The places that you can grow hockey are non-traditional markets. So having the Hurricanes and the Panthers in the Eastern Conference Finals, 2 teams that can score, 2 teams that can hit, 2 teams that have speed. Like this is what you should want if you like hockey. If you just want to see old original 6 teams, then you don't like hockey. You just like your team. Like I like hockey. Like I'd love to see the Hurricanes in the finals, but if they're not, I'm still going to watch. Right. And I think the team and the designers and the people who work with the teams can help build that. Right. Cause it gets people on board. It's a hook. And then once you get them hooked and you start reeling them in with some of these things and it kind of grows on people. Right. I mean, Jack, you said yourself, growing up in Western North Carolina, hockey wasn't on your radar. But then you get into it and it gets addictive, right? And then it kind of grows on you. And that's what this is about, in my opinion. Like that's what a lot of this is about. And that's what guys like Dan and Mike, for the Canes understand is it's not just the product on the ice. Like that's the most important piece. I mean, wins are what's going to put butts in seats. But if you're winning, what else can we do to help grow the game and grow the fan base? I mean, just even my background on Zoom. I mean, this is what I've been using for since the playoffs started. I mean, you got a barn full of people, waving rally towels and going nuts. And the hype videos and the graphics that are on social media, all of that feeds in and gets people pumped up for game days. It's just phenomenal.
It's integral to the development of the game and the added excitement and stuff. Like you want people, you want them to almost just be so hyped up and so fired up that they're like shaking going in, and they're holding everything together so that they can get to their seat and then just explode and make the PNC the loudest building in hockey, which it is. I mean, you'll know when you go, right? And Jack, you have a big part of that, along with all of your colleagues, like everyone working together, pulling on the rope in the same direction. It feels like it's the same thing that you see from the team as well. It's like everyone seems to be in tune to the jobs that they have, and they're all doing it properly, which is great. And Jack, I know you can't tell us what you have planned for, you know, the Panthers. I know you can't, reveal any of that, but surely from what we've seen, you've got a lot of great ideas kind of bouncing around, right?
I hope so. God, I hope so. I just, at the end of the day, I think the ultimate goal is to not have PETA like coming at us on Twitter. So I'll leave it at that. But I think that there's a fine line too that you can't cross when it comes to some certain things. Obviously, we're not trying to endanger animals or anything here, but just trying to have fun with it. And I know now the bar's set pretty high, so now it's how can we keep it going? It's it's a little nerve-wracking, but I think we're set up where we'll be successful. I hope so, at least.
And go ahead, Brad.
Go ahead, because I was going to change the topic. So if you have a question,
yeah, no, that's exactly where I was going.
So I was just thinking. So speaking of nerve-wracking, you kind of said before we started recording, you kind of came in right before the Stadium Series. So I assume they put you to work straight away, right? There's no time to like ease you in. I'm sure they were like, hey, we need Stadium Series graphics, go. Can you talk a little bit about Stadium Series and just being new, right? You kind of knew it there. You're dropped in. This is an NHL event. And I don't know if you can talk about it. Like, I know for hockey operations, the NHL was like, give us the keys. We're running everything out of the way. I assume for your group within the social media side, it was probably mostly hands off. I don't know if there was like, you need to do X, Y's, and Z some things, but otherwise just do your thing. But can you talk a little bit about the Stadium Series and how that was as a newer employee there, and then how that maybe differs from playoffs? Because I mean, playoffs are an annual thing the last 5 years, at least after the drought. But that Stadium Series, you got to work on something that, could be a once in a lifetime, certainly a once in a generation event for not just the Hurricanes, but the state of North Carolina. The Wolfpack UNC game that the Wolfpack smoked them, but there's 26,000 people in attendance for a club hockey game in Raleigh, North Carolina in February. That's got to be phenomenal. But can you talk a little bit about your Stadium Series experience?
Yeah, so with the Stadium Series, the NHL provided us with almost like a toolkit. It definitely wasn't like guidelines, like you have to use this for the score graphic or things like that. But it was like, here's some patterns that we're going to use. If you want them, here they are. Some texture, shapes, things like that. So they provided us with a bunch of different things that we could pull from if we wanted to. Like, we're not obligated at all. If it fits what we're trying to go with, then perfect. So with the Stadium Series, our kind of like, we sat down in meetings and said, okay, what do we want to focus on? We knew what the jerseys look like beforehand. So we knew like, yeah, that black and red is exactly what we're going to try and lean into, because that's all that's on our jerseys. So we leaned into that super heavy with some different fonts that we don't use in anything else. So like that's a different feel in itself. That's a different vibe. One of the fonts we used was the same one that's on the nameplate on the back. So if you go back and look, all the numbers and things are actually the same ones that are on the uniforms, and it's not used anywhere else. We don't use those in anything. So it's like its own little micro campaign, and it's almost similar to a Whalers night. It's just blown up a lot more, where we take over everything and switch fonts and even colors for Whalers night, but different things like that. But the Stadium Series was super cool, but I'll tell you, it was a pain because we had one jersey for all the guys to wear for the marketing material beforehand. So anything you see with Svetch, he's wearing a 21 jersey in real life, but we had to go in, take out the 21 on his arms and put a 37 for his real number. And we didn't have any nameplate on the back. I think it just said Hurricanes. So that was a pain because anything we wanted to use, we would have to doctor up a little bit more than a normal, photo shoot picture we had. So that was, interesting to work with, but I think it came together really well, just leaning on that black and red and kind of getting out of our normal day-to-day stuff. It was a completely different look and feel, because it, like I said, it was our Super Bowl. It was awesome.
And y'all hit it out of the park. I mean, you absolutely nailed it.
There's no question.
Yeah.
You okay? So look, because of my love for the Whalers, you gotta give me a little something about the work that you put into Whalers Night, because that's where my love for this squad began in the early 80s. I've been a big proponent of the fact that this is when we do Whalers Night, it's not straight money grab. It is respect for the history of the club, and it deserves to be brought to the front. And it always it tugs on the heartstrings. It's always there for me. So I'd love to hear something about some of the work you did for the Whalers Night.
Yeah, it was definitely a group effort again. Just we sit down and say, what do we want to kind of play into or pull in, and things like that. So this year we kind of leaned in heavy on some rope elements, to kind of, it could mean 100 different things with the Whalers, like, boats and things like that. But we leaned in heavy with the rope as a design element, heavy on the blues and things like that. And then, just how can we be different from years past? Because, we do this every year now. So how can you break it up so that it's new and fresh and it's not the same thing we did last year or the same thing we're going to do next year? So, getting back to our unit as a whole, it's very new. I think we've almost doubled the creative services size in the past 12 months. So we have a lot of resources now that maybe the Canes didn't have in years past, to do a lot of fun, different things that we couldn't do because of staffing issues or things like that in the past with, COVID and everything, getting out of that drought. We're set up very successfully right now with just in terms of personnel and things like that. We have a very talented group. So, I mean, that's just a proponent of, a lot of things coming and the dominoes falling in the right direction, with just a great group of people and Whalers Night, again, that micro campaign where it's not the same as a regular game day, right? It's a lot different. It's a lot more fun and you can do some wacky stuff with it.
I love it. And Jack, I don't know if a regular Caniac from Calgary can commission you and your team, but please, if you can do a hype one, like the ones you've done for the playoffs for the Whalers Night next season.
I had a fun one for Whalers. I don't know if you saw it. It was a while ago. It was kind of, I don't know if you can see it here, but it was kind of the iceberg.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's outstanding. I love it.
For people at home, there was if you remember the Whalers Night, there was an iceberg that was broke up, but in the Whalers logo, which I've heard it before, and I'll just echo it. Best logo ever in sports, and unfortunately that designer had just passed away, I think earlier this month. Ago. So yeah. If horrible news, but man, what a legacy to leave behind.
So maybe not $1 million idea, but maybe a tens of thousands of dollars idea. Next year, blue Whalers jerseys. Every fan I know, they love the green. The grays, it's gray. It's a little bit tougher sell, although they're still nice. But everybody I know is bring back the blue Whalers jerseys, and man. I will buy one, and myself included. So just the next time Tom is walking the halls, comes in to say hi to you,
put the bug
and is asking your opinion on how he should make more money, you can say, well, Brad and Ray think that you should do blue for Whalers, blue for Whalers Night next year.
Yeah, I'll make sure that Tom knows Storm Cellar next where their vote is.
Next time Tom takes you out to lunch and y'all are chilling at Capitol Grill, just be like, hey, Brad and Ray have a killer idea. Blue, it's different, right? gives you a new angle of things. But
Yeah.
the Whalers Night stuff's phenomenal.
It is.
I don't know. It's such an integral, like I think Ray, you said, part of the team dynamic now, right? I love hearing that they've expanded that group. I for my own self, I'm always looking to see if they, the next time they need like a network manager or a Windows, desktop guy or something, because they post things. I'm like, I don't do that. I don't do that. Like if you have computer jobs, let me know. Like I'll move back. But
there you go.
Not yet.
There you go. We found out so much about what you do, Jack, and thank you so much for sharing. I love being able to look in behind the curtain, right? And this is interesting stuff about the effort that is just, since the results are clear, we see the finished product, like you said, and the work that goes into it is phenomenal, but it takes brilliant minds like yours and your colleagues to kind of hone it all together, and little comments from people that say, oh, hey, how about the tooth, right? Like just little things. That was such sensational stories.
The nuances, right?
It is nuances indeed. Let's move on to what we're looking to in the playoffs right now. And Brad, I'm going to throw this to you. How do we want to do this? Do we want to start at Canes Devils and then just kind of break down the rest and then go to our future and what we're looking for? Or how do we want to do it? Do we want to come back to the Canes?
Let's finish Canes Devils, because then we can jump into Canes Panthers.
Sure.
So yeah, let's start in the West. I think we started in the East last time. Let's start in the West.
So and let's talk about last night's game, because that's the most recent one. Kraken versus Stars. The Kraken just won't go away. I can't imagine what Jack would be able to do with the Kraken, idea and stuff. It would be sensational, to be sure. This team just will not go away. They've got an effort and a work ethic. It's like they're the Hurricanes of the West, to be honest, because everyone is scoring. They're playing it the same way. They're so tough, and they're just confounding the Stars. And everyone's wondering, Stars have them on the ropes for Game 6, and you would never tell because you look at that game. When you look at each game individually, you never see who is more dominant in the entirety of the series, because every night it's either they're on or they're off. No real close games at all, and dominant play from one side or the other, whoever shows up. This is crazy. I did not see them going to 7 games, especially against the Stars, who just are loaded with talent. Jack, when you look at the playoffs like this, what do you see? What do you see out there? This is crazy.
I mean, I personally, as you guys now know, hockey's very new. Like I only get icing right about 80% of the time still. So
no,
I can't sit here and tell you, their forecheck needs to be better. The goalie problems here are plaguing the night. No, I from a creative standpoint, Kraken would be a lot of fun, and I do like watching them play. Like it's a new team, that's a lot of fun, and like those colors. I mean, my goodness. I mean, talk about jealous. Like, dude, those look great. So I would like to see the Kraken win, selfishly, because I'm not sure how you can get a hurricane up in the atmosphere to take down like a literal star. So selfishly, Kraken would be a lot easier to play with, right? But then in the other one, I don't know, the Oilers and like Golden Knights. I mean, I like watching McDavid play. I really do. But again, like I like the new franchises. I like to see them flourishing because it makes the old hockey heads mad. So, anything to stir the pot there is fun for me.
Absolutely.
You gotta like it. Brad, what do you think? Kraken Stars?
So not going the way I thought it would.
No.
Oettinger and Grubauer are both at like 900 for the series, in that range, which isn't bad by any means. but I honestly thought both of them would be better. I mean, we're seeing 5 and 6 goal games. It's shootouts. Like it's not that dissimilar to Hurricanes Devils. Certainly did not expect what every game, except for the one to be 4 goal wins and 4 goal leads. It's two teams that the Stars are just a little off, and the Kraken just picked it up. And when you put those two things together, it's, oh man, for Game 7, I said Stars in 6, but as I've said before, once you hit a Game 7, it's really a best of one.
It's a coin flip,
right? You've both won 3. It's kind of irrelevant. I don't even know how much winning Game 6 factors into it, unless you had to win multiple in a row. If you're down 3-1 and you need to win 3 straight, Florida, then you have an advantage in Game 7. But if it's kind of a back and forth, it really is a coin flip. And I don't know. I'm a closeted Stars fan, I think, but if the Kraken were to get through, I'm okay with that. I've just had fun watching the two teams. I mean, I think it's been a really good series in general. So, and that's, once again, that's, 2 non-traditional markets. Like, that's good for hockey,
So look, if a couple of things, if the Kraken were to make the final, I would be very excited to see the hype pieces that Jack could show up. But aside from that, I mean, there's a immediate love for that type of success based solely on the GM. I mean, Ron Francis, right?
That's your boy.
Bringing him home. He is in my mind, always the greatest ever. Will never be topped. And to see Ron Francis return with what he's been able to do with that team and have them in a Stanley Cup final, shoot, that would be just out of this world for me, and more great stories that can be, brought up to, the nuances of what the series will bring. That's going to be part of it. So that's great. I never would have imagined this in the style of play. If you were to say, so Raymond, which team is going to win when teams will be scoring, 5-6 goals a night? Is it going to be, if it's a run and gun game or whatever, I would have said Stars over and over and over, and maybe in 4. Like, you just couldn't play that way against the Stars. They have got so much scoring potential. But you look at Robertson, who is still MIA. You wonder what's
5 assists, no goals.
The assists are nice, and everyone would say, well, Raymond, he's not exactly MIA, but the problem is he is a goal scorer, and there is something missing, and he better show up at home.
Can I just say, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Ray, but
no, go ahead.
Yanni Gourde, who's having just a series for himself. When he was with the Lightning, he will always be the guy who cross-checked Stahl like 7 times, and then Stahl scores that goal and then starts whining to the refs. He'll always be that guy to me.
Yeah.
And I kind of would like to see him lose just based on that one play.
I
know that's super petty of me, but Jack works for the team. The Hurricane social media team gets petty if nobody else gets petty. So and Robo, Dallas is a team like most teams where if your goal scorers are not scoring goals, you're gonna have a hard time. The Hurricanes are one of the few exceptions to the rule. It's why we don't have any 40 goal scorers. It's like we don't have a whole bunch of 50 and 60 point guys. Everybody else is built that your goal scorers need to score. So yeah, Robo's, those 5 assists is great. Like, he's putting points on the board, but at some point he needs to net one, and he's got one game to do it.
Yeah. Almost it's not quite put up or shut up. No one's going to believe that he's a washout.
Yeah, they can do it without him, but
man, if they really want to make sure that they put their stamp on this series, he's going to need to.
He's not being he's no Jordan Martinook. Just saying.
Jordan Martinook Gretzky coming down the right wing. Now, Jack brought up Vegas and Oilers, so we'll touch on them too. Oilers are in trouble. Jack Eichel man, he's asserting himself in a big way too. And it's funny. I just did not. Again, taking penalties against the Oilers is a huge mistake. They're still doing it. Let me say first, Pietrangelo deserved at least 2 games, at least.
Yeah,
That was
that's not good.
When Rod Brindamore was talking about the tomahawk chop on Teravainen that broke his hand, he was accurate. That's what it was. But that was the mother of all tomahawk chops. Like, that stick was so high and no injury. You know what I mean? Like, Draisaitl survived it, but that was not the intent. The intent was break something. And understandably in that situation, losing your focus and being so mad and just looking for pure vengeance is understandable, considering the cross checks into the boards, the everything that had come on, with Kane and stuff. I got to tell you, it's getting fugly out there on the ice. Like, it's there's something to it, and it's not. We're stepping away from the great hockey that we can see, and the chippiness and the violence, which is going unfettered. Really, it's not called very often because now it's playoff hockey, where what is a penalty in the regular season, it suddenly doesn't reach that bar anymore. I'll never understand. If it's a penalty at one point, it's a penalty whenever it's done. And that's just not the way the game
just
is
one rule
being
book,
called.
right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's frustrating as heck. Oilers are on the ropes, but I can see them coming out very, very strong. The Edmonton Oiler fans will pack Rogers, and they are going to be bumping. It's going to be big. Very tough fight. Vegas is going to have a hard time, kicking them out of the playoffs. There's just no other way to describe it. But it's going to have to rely on Skinner. He's going to have to have to be better than he was in Game 5. And there's no question about that. What do you think, Brad?
I have thoughts. It's my show, so I guess that's good, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So the first thing that jumped out to me, I was doing some looking around last night, and on the NHL.com, they have like a players to watch, like for the game previews.
Mm-hmm.
And for the Oilers, it's points, McDavid, goals, Draisaitl, assists, Nugent Hopkins, plus minus, Hyman. And for the Vegas, it's Jack Eichel, and Jack Eichel. It's like, I don't know why. It's like they think he's a one-man band, and like they're getting contributions. But what really sets this series apart for me is special teams and 5-on-5. Oilers power play 47.4%. I mean, holy smokes. Versus the 74%.
Like,
yeah, it's I mean, if half the time you on the power play you get a goal, this should be 4-0, right? The Vegas Golden Knights penalty kills only 58.8%. Oilers aren't a lot better, but they're 74. But I mean, that's not good, but it's better than 58. And yet goals for is only 0.2 difference. 3.82 for the Oilers, 3.6 for the Knights. And goals against is 0.2 lower, obviously, for Vegas, which means they're beating them 5-on-5.
Yeah.
The Oilers are in these series because of power plays. Like, that's what's keeping them in the game. I'm a little surprised, but this is kind of, what I've said all year and all last year about the Oilers. This year, they are getting more contributions up and down the line. But when your offense relies on a couple of people netting goals on the power play, Vegas, just don't take penalties tonight. Just stay back, play a little more conservative, play 5-on-5 because you're beating 5-on-5. And, Jack Eichel moving on from Buffalo, I think was a big mistake for, one of my favorite players, Kevin Adams, who's the GM there in Buffalo. They should have just let the man have the surgery, because Buffalo would have would have been in the mix this year if they had him, in my opinion. They really would have. I mean, I think he could have elevated his game the way he has in Vegas. I think he could have easily done that in Buffalo. And that brings up guys like, a different Skinner. But
yeah,
I still think that this is going to be Vegas. I think I said Vegas in 7. I think you said Oilers in 7.
yep.
I think we both are a coin flip away from being right. If Vegas can get it done tonight, which is a 10 p.m. start, which is ridiculous. It's Mother's Day weekend. It's a Sunday. There's no other game on.
There's no other game. Why are they pushing it so late? I don't understand.
I don't. We talk about trying to grow the league, and the league keeps doing things that don't grow the league, because out west, yeah, it'll be great. Everybody out west will watch from maybe 8 to 11. But people out east, they'll wake up in the morning to see who wins, potentially. So, but overall, it's the type of series I kind of expect a little bit. It is chippy. There's a lot of back and forth. I'm so thankful that Canes Devils wasn't this way. Canes Islanders was a little bit. I'm so glad that I don't like Lindy Ruff. I haven't liked him since Buffalo came back in our barn in 06, I think it was.
Yeah,
and it was never, because he's he's just not my kind of guy. But at least I can agree with him that he doesn't like the after whistle stuff. He doesn't like that agitating for the sake of agitating. Like, he has guys who will go out there and do those things, but when the whistle blows, for the most part, regroup and focus, get back to hockey. And I love the fact that we're not having to deal with some of the things that like Vegas and the Oilers are, because there's it's very it's getting kind of personal. Guys are going to get hurt, and the Hurricanes are already in the hole there. So
yeah, no question.
Yeah,
no question. Let's move east, and Jack, I don't know if you were so nice to share behind the curtain information. I'm going to share behind the curtain information with you. So in my house, my wife, who I love dearly, is a long-suffering, long and suffering Leafs fan. And part of me was not wanting to have a civil war in my house with the Leafs actually moving on to face us. So in a sense, the Panthers winning is a blessing in disguise.
You think it saved your marriage?
It may have. It absolutely may have.
She clearly stepped out of the room the last couple of minutes.
Now the problem though is I was watching that 5th game, Florida and Leafs, and I've never been more angry in support of the Leafs and the Leafs fans in my life. I watched that game and I lost count of missed calls, missed everything. There's a long list that really stuck out for me. Now, as for you, I'm not sure what would have been more fun for you to do. Trying to do stuff with the Leafs versus the Hurricanes where the Leafs blow, which is one thing that I always say all the time, or the Panthers. What ideas were you looking at? Were you licking your chops as to which one you'd be looking at?
I mean, I was definitely rooting for the Panthers in the last 2 rounds, really. So now I'm a little bit sad that I have to root against them, but trust me, I will be. Their design team really has set a high standard in the past few years, and they're like second to none in the NHL. So I've actually, when you're in the design or creative space in sports, you get to know who actually is doing these things. So I'll chop it up in the DMs with some of the Panthers designers and be like, talk a little bit of smack and things like that. Because for me, like, Twitter is my LinkedIn for how an accountant would use LinkedIn. That's how Twitter is for me. I've gotten a lot of professional opportunities just through that platform, because that's how you kind of can pinpoint track these people down that are behind the scenes. So definitely, you know, getting to talk to these Panthers designers and things like that. Like, I definitely wanted to see them move on just so we could have, you know, I don't want to say like,
down.
yeah, battle the juggernauts, but like, I think that, you know, we're getting to that territory where it's kind of like two teams that are setting themselves apart in a way of like social media are really going at it. And like, you can't ask for better. Like, for me to keep things interesting and fresh, and just like, that's a dream scenario, really.
I know this is your first year with the Canes, but like previously so far, like, have you ever been interacting with like another team's, you know, maybe design team, you're just DMing or whatever, just smack and talk smack, talking smack? Has anybody like slipped up and given you something and you went, oh, I can turn that into a graphic? Like, has anybody like accidentally not giving away like what they're doing or anything, but like, have they ever made a comment or something and you went, oh, I can use that? Has that happened yet? Because I think that'd be wicked funny.
No, because I mean, you know, you're trying to keep it civil, because it's like, you know, we're
Right.
all professionals here. It's not like I'm gonna like watch film.
Yeah, it's not like rival high schools where it's like, oh, that high school, those kids suck. Like,
right? No, we're all very friendly and things like that. But I mean, I even think like, if you asked, you know, if I went out and asked and be like, hey, like, can I get a little bit of ammunition? Like, okay, this would kind of be funny to play with, because they know, you know, for the Hurricanes, you know, I don't know, something funny they would like make fun of us could be, you know, like rednecks, you know, Hicktown, things like that. And maybe you don't know that if you're like a fan of a West Coast team, or I don't know, maybe something like that. So like, if anything, if like someone asked, I'd be like, okay, here's a little bit of something you could play with, and I would hopefully expect them to do the same if I asked, right? Like,
all press is good press, right?
Right. Yeah. It's
Gotcha.
we're all kind of in this together, and it's not like, I'm not trying to like beat them. Like, we can't control that, right? Our job doesn't change. It's you know, if they can help me do my job, I'll try and help them do their job better. It's all like one big happy family in a sense, where it's, you know, it's still competitive and you want to be like funny and go at them, but it's all in good fun.
Yeah, and there's only 32 teams, so you don't want to burning the bridges, like, you know,
Right,
even just separate from the Canes. I mean, you're also like, oh, like, I don't know when, you know, their head of social media might be somewhere else and is looking for somebody, and, you know, not that we would want you to leave the Canes because you're doing a bang up job, so don't get me wrong, but
goodness, yeah,
you know, it's a small community.
Please.
That's
100%.
Yeah, no, it's very, very tight knit for sure.
Awesome. Look, Florida wins in game 5, and understand the Leafs did not, their core 4 of all of them, only Nylander really showed up. Austin Matthews, you want to talk MIA. Now he's really got the reputation of not being a playoff guy, not being able to take the pressure, whatever. And they're all being crucified. And now they're talking about blowing up the Leafs and reshaping everything. Like, when the smoke clears from this particular loss and the way they played, it's not so much that they lost, it's the way that those games went. It's not going to look the same next year, to be sure. And
a lot of teams in that space too, boy.
Oh, there's no question. But going back to that game, Gudas holding the stick of the defenseman as they're rushing in on the goal score, where you can see it is plain, it is there. He prevents the defender from being able to even make a stick check or whatever. If his stick is not being held up by Gudas, he might have just deflected it away, because they had active sticks all game. They were doing that well enough. And it goes uncalled for. Interference penalties. Bennett running around like he always does. Gudas doing the same thing, smoking guys, the puck's nowhere near them. Refs, you know, 3 blind mice kind of thing. Just it's not a penalty.
It's not a good look.
Yeah. The icing. Puck goes all the way down the ice. and Bobrovsky goes out of his crease and actually plays the puck, but the ref calls icing. Goaltenders are not allowed to even flinch when the puck is going down the ice. Jack, you joked you still don't know icing 80% of the time. I'm arguing that I don't even think the officials know what icing is.
Don't feel bad, Jack.
Like, you seriously, that is it was unbelievable. And I'm screaming at the TV, Brad, like I was a Leafs fan and like I do as a Cane. When I'm watching the Canes and seeing stuff like that, I'm screaming at the TV. All I want is for look, officials have in the NHL toughest job in the league, including the goaltenders, including the players. Toughest job. It is a lightning fast game, and you have to make decisions to blow the whistle at a moment's notice, and it's got to be hard. But those incidents were out there. They were out there and they were clear for everyone to see, and they refused to blow the whistle.
Or,
and it made me nuts.
And I'm laughing because, or they thought about blowing the whistle and therefore the goal is disallowed.
There you go.
So
and the puck was in the net.
I have so many thoughts on this series. The officiating's just it's brutal. And we're going to talk in the offseason. I want to bring in some people for roundtable and talk about Rod Brind'Amour's idea to move 2 on-ice officials up to a booth and have them basically review everything and kind of somewhat in real time. And then, if a call gets called, then they get it right every time, right?
We should put the link to that interview up, him and Elliot Friedman.
We totally will.
It is a sensational interview.
And Rod's not criticizing the refs. He's actually saying, look, the game is too fast for all this to be done by human eyes in real time. So we have video technology. Let's get it right and do what's right. I saw a couple of media outlets who were posting that holding the stick, and it was like penalty or hockey play. It's like, it's a penalty. Like, that's not if you think that's a question, like, you're in the wrong business, because that's a penalty, right?
It's in the rule book in black and white.
The whole Bobrovsky going out, you're right. Like, as soon as he makes a move toward the puck, it's not icing. My 9-year-old could tell you it's not ice. Why an NHL ref cannot tell you that's not, I don't know. But I will say this too. So one is, I feel we have a few friends of the show that are Leaf fans. I think the Leafs spent so much emotional energy just to get around one. I think it's not a physical thing. It's a mental thing, right? I think there was so much energy spent, and then the elation, and it's like anything else. Like, your brain only produces so much dopamine and serotonin, and then the levels drop off, and you have to just wait until your brain makes more. And I think that's kind of what happened in this case is they just couldn't get back amped up and get rolling.
Yeah.
A lot of talk in Toronto about blowing things up. Is Matthews going home to the Coyotes, in exchange for some first round picks? Is he the new, and not even new, is he just, the newest version of the Leafs playoff scapegoat? Because we know it used to be Anderson, and now Anderson's 5-0 in the playoffs as a Cane. I know the Kochetkov game where he gave up 4 goals is not a good look, but technically that's Kochetkov's loss. I don't make the rules. That's how it is. Anderson's 5-0 as a Cane in the playoffs. That's amazing. The Boston Bruins, just real quick, have $10 million in cap space, have no first or second round pick for the next 2 years, no second round pick 3 years from now in 2025, and they have like 11 guys to sign. They're host. I don't know what they're going to do. The Leafs are better off than that, but they're not in a good position as far as I'm aware. So
that is some cap space gymnastics that is going to be second to none.
They are going to field a lot of young guys.
Wow.
A lot of young guys. That's the only way you can do it. So I feel bad for our Leaf fans, friends. I didn't think the Leafs were going all the way. Again, once again, more of it from an emotional thing than anything. But is it any different than Carolina in the last few years where we get to the playoffs and the big dogs don't show up, right? To me, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
The difference is Toronto is built that if those 4 guys don't show up,
they're
host. And Carolina's built that if our top 4 guys don't show up, somebody's going to step up. Because I was watching the Hockey Guy this morning. I'll try and keep this brief. Hockey Guy Shannon on YouTube is, if you're going to follow one person on YouTube, make it Shannon. And he was talking about rule changes in the NHL over the years. And it was the best video I've seen about hockey in general in a long time. And he was talking about, a lot of people don't know, you used to have a goaltender. I had forgotten this. A goaltender, 2 defensemen, 3 forwards, and a rover. And the rover was basically, it's almost like in soccer. They can play forward, they can play defense, they can do anything but play goal, right? They're wherever they're needed on the ice, that's where the rover goes. Rod Brind'Amour has pulled like a Ted Lasso, to use pop culture, because that's the best show on TV, other than Canes hockey. Rod Brind'Amour has 5 rovers and a goalie at all times on the ice.
Yeah.
Players go where they're needed. If they're in the, if they're in the attacking zone, they're expected to try and score goals. If they're in the defensive goal, they're expected to defend. And so they don't have that problem as much as other teams. Like, would we be better with Svechnikov? Absolutely. We'd be better with Pacioretty? Probably. We don't know for sure, but I mean, he was on fire in the 5 games he did play.
Yeah.
Teravainen's back on the ice in a no contact jersey. Knock on wood. Was he producing points wise the way he has in the past? No. Are we better with Teravainen in than somebody else? We are.
Yep.
Even if it's just a chemistry thing and a knowing Aho thing, because if you can get Tavo and Aho going together again, that 2086 combo, like, it's lethal. Maybe that gets Aho, a little more push. But we've been fortunate. Other guys have stepped up. I'm going from Leafs, Florida into Canes Devils here a bit, but
that's fine.
It all kind of connects in some way. Like, we see problems with one team, and then, well, why is the other team winning? It's like, because they don't have those problems. They're built differently.
It's funny, Brad, because it's funny that you mentioned that, because in watching that game for the Leafs, I got an inside look at the frustration the Leafs must have, because I've seen every Hurricanes game. I've watched them all. And there is an expectation about how you would play. And I cannot tell you how many times I was yelling at the TV, you got to press that. You got to be on it. You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
It's like I'm watching the Canes, but they're not playing a Canes game. And so I was saying it, and then I remember, oh yeah, Toronto doesn't play that way.
Right.
And
almost nobody else plays that way.
Well, except for potentially our opponents coming up, because they did a lot of pressure. They were on top of the Leafs at every second. So that's what we can expect coming up. The one thing I will say is that having the Leafs move on, which would have caused civil war, it would have created the single greatest side story in a playoff series ever, which is Freddie taking on the Leafs after he was drummed out of that community for not being good enough, not, being clutch in the big games, when everyone put the blame on him, understanding he did not have anywhere near the defensive crew that he has now.
No, not even close.
Like, it's not even remotely close. So Anderson is going to be great. Let's move to the Panthers and what's coming. We'll talk hockey. We've kind of already touched on Jack, and they're going to be doing their work. So Jack, jump in if you want. You're watching the games too. I see this is going to be another series very similar to the Islander series. It's going to be in the effect that it's chippier. They're playing our game, but Gudis, Bennett, Kachuk, they've got even Verhaeghe, who every now and again has got a little bit of gumption in him, and he starts doing chippy things or whatever. They play the Hurricane style, high pressure, lots of skating, scoring from everywhere, but they're just chippier, and it's going to be ugly. Canes fans, Caniacs, jerks alike, get ready. you're going to be screaming a lot at
Get your hate on. It's coming.
Because it's coming, and it's not, and there's just no two ways about it. They're going to do everything they can to agitate the Canes, to injure them if they can. Because again, Gudas, Bennett, dirty is all get out. Some of the dirtiest players in the league. Bennett himself, like, I can't even tell you. It's unbelievable what he does. And it's going to be a slobber knocker if you want to drop into the WWE days and stuff. So slobber knocker is what it's going to be. Brad, let's hear what you're looking at coming ahead with the Panthers.
You pretty much nailed it already. So all the things that I said nice about New Jersey, about it not being stuff after the whistle or even before the whistle. Yeah, that's the opposite of what's going to happen here. Some storylines, some thoughts in general. Paul Maurice is their coach. Like I think I said last episode, he didn't seem to be a good fit. And then sometime in like March, April, he kind of figured out how to get that team to get them to play well, and they've played very well since. So the fact that they were the 17th best team, wildcard 2, the Bruins underestimated them, the Leafs underestimated them, the Canes will not.
No.
They play an up-tempo style like the Canes, but with a lot heavier grit. Caniacs, you are absolutely going to hate guys like Gudas and Tkachuk and Bennett because, when Ray says they're dirty players, he's not. You just go to YouTube, search for the film, you can see it for yourself. I'm not lying. That's the style of play. Like if they can knock a guy out of a series, akin to like the old kind of style Bruins or Devils, they have no problem with that. Yep. They also have enough talent that they can score. So it's gonna be a heck of a series. I don't think this one's gonna be short at all. As playoffs go on, I think we all tend to value longer series because you just assume that's going to happen. This could easily go 6 or 7 games. It's the big thing is going to be, for Caniacs on social media, use the mute button, use the block button, because you're going to have some Florida Panthers fans talking trash. But, as the Hurricanes, especially for newer fans, I'm thinking like, Nancia, some other folks who are newer to the Canes, who haven't seen a long run like this, the deeper that the Hurricanes get in the playoffs, the less respect we get nationally, not more, even though they're fighting the way. You're going to see more and more people popping up about how the Canes don't deserve it. The same old attendance numbers. Look, the Hurricanes were second in attendance in the whole league this year. If you do it by percentage, because somebody asked me on Twitter, that's not really good stat. They should do it by percentage. And this was a Caniac, basically calling me out about the second in the league in attendance. I'm like, well, that's not my stat, but the Hurricanes are 9th in the league percentage-wise with an average attendance of 99.6%. Fans show up when you win. Shocker. Who would have thought? When I moved to Boston, the Hurricanes had higher attendance than the Bruins did. Why? Because the Bruins sucked and the Hurricanes did.
Yeah.
This is not magic. This is not, there are hidden hockey fans away, or this market really only has 17,000 hockey fans. No, money is tight. We're in an economy where it costs a lot of money to take a family to a game. They're going to come if you're going to win. And the Hurricanes, I think they're at 700 at home for the series. I mean, they're just absolutely rocking the home games. So PNC is going to be full. Like selling, I saw, the other day, the Hurricanes are restricting ticket sales to NC for the playoffs. And this was from Florida Panthers Sunshine.net, something, some pseudo journalist, I'm assuming, because the next thing that he said was, and the Panthers aren't doing that. It's like, yeah, but you did last round. You're not going to put that in your fancy news article. Everybody does it. A, it's a non-story. And B, if you're going to write a story that the Hurricanes are somehow bad or doing something wrong by doing it, don't then say that your team isn't when your team just got done doing it to the Leafs fans.
Yeah.
I mean, so from a social media aspect, I implore you, Caniacs, mute, block. Don't worry about it. You're not missing anything by doing that. I often see people, on social media, especially Twitter, criticizing, some aspects. Some are even just Hurricanes trolls that I don't think are real Hurricanes fans that just go troll other people. And I'm like, I must curate our timeline pretty well because I don't see most of that stuff. Like, I'm very happy if somebody just wants to, I'm all for talking smack. I can be petty. I can take petty. Bobby Brewski, the Bruins guy who did the skull clap video that people ragging on, actually is hoping that we're going to beat the Panthers. He reached out and that's the kind of chirping that I'm here for, right? It's all in good fun, not taking it too seriously. I said a million times, like, look, this looks like a good dude. He's just pulling for a bad team. Like, that's not, that's not his fault. And he's in Winnipeg, which is weird. So
very weird.
But the people out there that just want to troll you, just block them.
Yeah.
Just get rid of them. Just block them, mute them.
Understand Canes and Caniacs and jerks out there. The haters, there is no straw that they will not grasp at. You understand? They will go, like, there's no bounds. They will go wherever they think they've got something. They'll grasp at any straw out there in an effort to prove whatever.
If they think they're annoying you, that it's just going to encourage them. I just block people. I don't.
Yeah, there you go.
I have no time.
This is going to be such a, and the other story, I know there's many, and Paul Maurice coming back is great. Everyone's already talking about it. All of the Stahl brothers on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
All of them together. It's the Stahl brothers series.
Except Jared. Wah, wah. Wow. But he's and Jared's a coach with the Charlotte Checkers. So is Jared going to stick with his NC brethren and pull for the Hurricanes? Or is he going to go with the two brothers versus one brother and go with the Panthers?
I joked about Civil War in my built house. How about theirs?
And Coach Maurice coached all three of our coaches. In 2002, he had Rod Brindamore, Jeff Daniels, and he had Timmy Gleason. Not in 2002, I don't think. He had Timmy Gleason later.
Yes.
He had Timmy
Isn't that
Gleason
crazy?
on the rebound. So, so the Panthers coach has coached all of our coaches. So, does that give him an advantage? I don't think so, because they weren't really coaches at the time. But does that give maybe Brindamore and company a little insight? Because, Chairman Mo is never known to be a highly inventive coach, right? He understands the game. He kind of knows what should work and kind of what doesn't, but he's not known for being super flexible. He's known for being a great quote, which thank goodness for that. Cause I actually like all those interviews.
I do too. I was just about to say
there's a lot of storylines
into my brain, right? Because the post-game interviews and stuff are going to be sensational. Make no mistake of that.
And then Rod's playing head games like, well, hey, Rod, who's going to start and go? He's like, oh, it's like, but the game's in like 6 hours. He's like, oh, well, I don't know.
That's the way it is. That's the way it is. We're looking forward to it. I
was going to say, Jack, I assume you're getting a little time off. Like you have a little breather here. Cause as far as I know, we don't know when the game's going to start, right? They're going to probably have the Western Conference games finish up. I'm guessing we'll have a mid to late week start for these. So do you guys have, like, is this like a little breathing space for you, or is this the opposite? So I work for a university. So people are like, oh, summer must be easy for you because the students are gone. I'm like, no, like, because then I got projects. So all the things that need to be done when students aren't here, my life is busier when there's no students. So you guys have, you're talking to us, so you must have a little downtime, but is it a little bit of a calm before the storm?
Yeah, and it's a lot of it's a lot of kind of sitting on your hands, waiting until to see the storylines that come out and the wins and losses. Like the win-loss column is pretty important to the content in terms of what direction we're going to go in. So, a lot of it is okay. Well, we got to wait and see. Like we can't. There's only so much you can do without knowing what's going on. And that's dependent on a lot of different things. So yeah, like we don't even know the dates yet or the times or the networks. So we're just kind of, we're in a mode right now. We're just waiting to see and kind of just racking our brains, trying to like write down some ideas, get the ball rolling. So once we finally know okay, this is when we need this by, let's kick it into overdrive. Definitely this weekend was nice that we wrapped it up on Thursday so that we could have like some a little bit of sleep, right?
Yeah.
So hoping, a later start's better for us. Like if we start Thursday, that'd be nice. Game 1 Thursday would be nice. But we'll see. Like we don't know dates at all, so I'm not hiding anything.
No, no, understood, right? It's just you
Yeah.
kind of just wait in a holding pattern, ready to activate at the drop of a hat, and you guys will get the word, and I'm sure there's going to be some amazing ideas. Brad, this has been a great episode.
Yeah, thanks, Jack, for coming on kind of last second. We've kind of been lucky throughout the playoffs, Ray. We normally for playoffs, it's kind of more me and Ray. We talk a little more hockey than usual instead of more Caniac stories. And this year we've just kind of, lucky to kind of stumble into some folks, right? We had Bruce last week and Matt from LB Jerseys, with the Gossip Spare jersey. I mean, for you guys in social media, you had to be like, oh, like that's a great story. We can do something like that gives us something to play off of. And then when somebody turned me on to you and you were like, hey, actually I'm not that busy if they can wrap it up, and they did. So thanks for wrapping it up early. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us, because I know a lot of people have been impressed with not just your work, but Allie's work. Because I didn't realize there were, not that I didn't know, but unless you go to like the Hurricane staff page, you don't necessarily know. We have a couple of graphic designers, and I know we have video folks and audio folks and everything. So I know somebody initially just put your name on it, and I was like, oh, like he designed all 4 of these because they're so similar. They feel like a set, and so to know that multiple people worked on them and you can't tell, I think is a testament to how good a job you all have done, because that's one of those things that's difficult in art and in that kind of space, is to have multiple people doing things and have it appear seamless, and it looks absolutely seamless. I just assumed you did them all until today. Tell Allie, like, if I didn't know it, I'd invited her on too. I just didn't know what I don't know. So maybe another time we can maybe have Allie or somebody else from the team would want to come on, because I think a little peek behind the curtain, I think it's good for the team. I think it's good for the social media folks. I'm sure Dan and Mike probably don't mind most of the time if it's, as long as there's no like gotcha journalism involved, because the fans want to know. Like the fans, we often say small market team has to connect with the fans. Like you have to be one pulling together. And I think all these little peeks behind the curtain, like you've given us today, help the fans feel more connected to the team. And that's only good for team, right? That drives sales. It drives revenue. People buy tickets. It gets people like Nancia to say, like, to her friends, like, I just went to a hockey game and it's awesome, and you guys should come with me and do this thing. So we really appreciate the time for you taking time out of your weekend and on Mother's Day too. So
yeah,
I don't know how busy you might be the rest of the day, but taking an hour out for us is really awesome.
And
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and Jack, let me just on behalf of Caniacs and Jerks everywhere, I'll just assume this. We have a deep admiration for the creativity and just the work that you and your colleagues have put in to hype this team, to hype the sport. It is cerebral and it is fantastic, and we cannot wait to see what you have in the coming series. And I'm saying series as multiple because we are going to beat the Panthers. I made the mistake of picking against this team, against the Devils, because I thought that Schmid had caught a Cam Ward heater as a rookie who was just going to be able to carry them the rest of the way. I was wrong. Rod proved me wrong. The system works. We've got a great team regardless of who's in the lineup because they're all doing the same thing. We're moving on, and that's just that. And we get more of what you and the graphic design team have been able to put forth. Thank you so much. I love it. I love every aspect of it, and we all do. Thank you for your work.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me on. It was a lot of fun, and I hope I answered some questions that people might have. I mean, I didn't know this community was kind of so. I don't know the word for it. I know they're enthusiastic. Don't get me wrong, but like I think like 2 weeks ago before the playoffs started, I probably had like 800 followers on Twitter, and now I think I'm up to like 1,600, and it's like, oh wow, this is really cool, and they're all like Canes fans. So it's cool getting to interact with them, and like people, send me messages and talk to them, and just like a lot of love from the Caniacs. So shout out to them, and we got 8 more wins to go. So
8 more.
it's time to go.
The Caniacs will never have Leafs Nation size.
No,
but we already have Leafs Nation heart.
Yeah,
as far as I'm concerned.
Beyond, we don't.
The Caniacs who show up love this team.
Yeah, we do. So with that, Brad, we've covered everything. We've gotten a backstage look at all the great work that the graphic team is doing to hype us up, get us all fired up. We've looked a little bit ahead, covered the league. Is there anything else we need to do?
Go Canes.
Go Canes.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us via email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.